Good morning, morning, morning. I just ate some fried chicken for breakfast and I'm cooking. Sure y'all want to know that. Hi.
Fried chicken for breakfast sounds incredible.
It was pretty good. It was I was really running late and I just grabbed it out of the fridge and like, that'll be good. That'll totally do it. I almost ate all of it, but I saved a little bit for after this. So, all right, we are gonna do some hip keys. It's gonna be awesome. Hi, kitty cat. Very nice. I love seeing the kitties here. So I just wanted to open up, as usual, just to see if there's any particular just things you wanted to know about hip keys or hip key ascent, hip key descent, common problems, that kind of thing. If anybody had a specific thing they're here for versus me just blathering on about hip keys and what I think they should do. Okay, moving on in 5, 4.
I want to know the secret.
Wants a secret. I love that, Amy. Thank you. Miles, what will you say?
So what
I'm just like going back and refining and getting more information about the basics, especially because I got advanced on bar apparatus and then got thrown like pretty quickly into like higher level rope and missed a lot of the like standard fundamental progressions.
Oh, yeah. And hip keys are like key. I know that sounds really cheesy, but they really, like how you do them really matters for a lot of other things. So it can really help you with like your meat hook strength too. So that's the way I look at them. So Randy, you were jumping in, you had a thing?
Oh yeah, just saying that again, going back like to basics and working on keeping the leading leg straight in hip key. And also the idea of being able to lean back in hip key and not try and do it from totally upright. And then prepping for hip key roll-ups. I mean, this is all like making sure that my form is right as I'm working on hip key roll-ups.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's just helpful to kind of see what perspective you guys are coming from before I just go on and on. But jump in if you have questions at any time or thoughts, or just, you know, you're like, oh, what about this little thing? That was super helpful. I want to just start actually with the strength component of this. I'm going to go over the form of hip key, but I actually don't necessarily think that's where we solve the problems of hip key. Sometimes we need more support. Like getting into hip key is harder than getting out. So if we think of a progression, we're actually going to start with getting out of hip key progressive wise. But I think I need to go over exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about a good form hip key first. So we'll start there. And then we can talk about that bent leg especially. I love that, Randy. Thanks for bringing that to attention. That's like a whole other fun topic, but I will touch on it. So I really like it. Okay. And again, just unmute yourself if you send me a chat or something asking a question. I never see it. Well, that's not true. I sometimes see it, but I rarely see it. So my partner is a philosopher and he's currently working on a paper on exaggeration. So when I say things like never, but I mean most of the time, I find myself constantly catching myself because I'll be corrected at home anyway. Like, that's not true. That's exaggerating. Oh my God. We exaggerate so much and it's wonderful. It makes talking fun. Okay, a little bit of rosin. So hip key. I'm talking about, I learned this as windmill hip key, the big fan legs, right? It has 3 elements. It has a lean away from the rope, a lean back toward the ceiling, and a lean into the rope as far as the torso is concerned. As far as the legs are concerned, it's a scissor away from the rope, a straddle toward the ceiling, and a scissor toward the rope. So kind of think about those 2 components. We can do it bent arm, we can do it straight arm. So I'm going to start with the bent arm version, but the torso still should do the same thing, right? So if I do a bent arm, first time touching the rope this morning, I'm just going to pull up. The first thing I want to do is lean away. What does that look like? Sure as hell looks like a meat hook to me. Yeah. So I'm going to lean away and scissor toward the rope, lean toward the ceiling. I've got a straddle and scissor into the rope. Yeah. So that's my hip key, and people typically end down here. I'm so accustomed to going into something else that I always end up here, but typically people actually key in. So you have this matching meat hook position on the other side, right? So if I look at that again, I'm just come up a little higher to be better in your frame. There. That was my first meat hook, straddle, second meat hook with a scissor position. That position where my head's down, my feet are down, my butt is up. Yeah. Okay. That's hard. That's a lot of strength to get into this position. Why do we need that? That meat hook position is to get the hips really high. Yeah. So the last thing you want is to lose height on your apparatus when you're going into hip key. This should be a rest position. It should be a place where you maintain your height or go up ideally, unless you're intending to drop into it. You can always intend to go somewhere. That's wonderful. But if you can't control it, that becomes a problem because oftentimes you'll want to maintain your height. So what I typically see is what Randy said, which is people staying vertically and they're like this. And then I sink. And the reason is I'm not able to tip myself away and get my butt up in the air, open the legs to bring my pants up, essentially. That's what it feels like. You're putting on your rope pants and then cross over and secure it. Okay. It's the same thing from straight arms, right? I don't know if you see any difference. I'm mostly asking you because I'm not thinking there is one, but I am super open to the possibility. I'm gonna switch sides. Yeah. But I want to come up high and then key over. Yeah. I still have that away position, right? Really dropping away with my head, chest opens to straddle, and then keying in. Just checking in. How are we doing so far? Cool. This all makes sense, right? So how
it does make sense. It's not what I do, but it does, and it's never been taught that way. Like, not to me. It's not been taught that way of thinking of the meat hook first. So that's kind of a revelation.
Yeah, same. I've always, like, I've been taught about a little bit of that side bend and hip lifts, but never to a full meat hook. And I think that might actually solve many of my not fully efficient hip key things, because I can totally lift to a meat hook. And I feel like that will give me a much stronger starting space.
It will. It will. Now, here's where I'm going to shake that up. I don't know if you saw when I did the straight arm one, like I don't have a strong pull sideways to meat hook. I kind of did a hybrid. And then there's the whole, like, can you do this without the meat hook? Yes, you can. But you have to work those legs so hard. Okay. So that side bend initial, twist, initial scissor, you've got to really kind of side bend and crank up without leaning away. And then here's the thing is when you go to the straddle, you have to really curl your pelvis under and in that moment, lift your hips and then key over. So I demonstrate these are the two ways that I do it. I am sure there are other ways and they're probably fine too, but this is what I've had the most success with. So that's what I'm sharing. I just really want to reinforce always, there's just no dogma here. There's no right way to do anything. It's all about where are you going and where are you coming from? What makes sense, right? But if I'm to do it from straight body, I'm going to get my scissor right here. You can really see that I really lift my hips up here. And now I've keyed in. I've maintained my height. But I don't know if you could see that, but there's like a massive pelvic curl to get my straddle up high. And I'm really going wide. Some folks are stronger in their shoulders than they are in their hips. So my personal strength is abs and my weakness is my shoulders. So I will curl. I will use my inversion strength there. Say you're stronger in your shoulders. I could still demonstrate this. I'll just pretend to be stronger today for one shot, and then I'll probably go cry in the corner. But if I wanted to use my more planche strength, I can really lean back here with my torso as I bring my hips up. So I'm starting from straight, but then I'm kind of like planche pulling. It's not a strong position for me, so I don't do it. I also want to think like sometimes we're doing this to make pretty, right? I don't think it's as pretty when we kind of lean back and fight with the rope. So I prefer the long hang. Number one, it's easier for me, but number two, it makes more pretty. Okay, so we've talked about two options, kind of the meat hook, rainbow legs hitting the chest up, meat hook, yeah, or really doing the same thing with the legs, but when you hit those, the big rainbow with the legs, you've got to really curl the pelvis under and lift up a bit. And so some people achieve that lift also from lifting. That is a possibility. I just want to open up all the possibilities of how could you do this, right? Because you have to figure out what are my goals? What's my long-term hip key goal, but what's my now goal too? What can I do today if I had to do an online show tomorrow, right? That looked good for me. So that idea is I could long hang, start here, pull up and key over, and I still maintained my height. Legs are the same. So now I've got three options. I didn't intend to go in that direction, but that's the way these classes go. It's spurred by you, by your questions, your thoughts, and observations, okay? So I have to say, I really do prefer that straight arm and meat hooky approach for two reasons. It usually keeps the rope more stable and looks pretty. I put those two things together. I think having a stable rope looks nice. And the other thing is it conditions me for all my meat hooks. It's like an assisted meat hook. So the way I condition that strength, I started with these hip key descents. I started playing with this idea and really working with them. This is a part of when I'm working on roll ups and rolling down. You learn how to roll down first to roll up, but it still works for a strong hip key. Because what you need is that strong side pull to get your hips up. So this is a way to work that if you don't have like a just boop, you know, meat hook, the boop meat hook. So if you don't have a boop meat hook, technical terms, this is the hip key descent. And this is where I would start if your hip keys are not feeling awesome. I would start with this thing and the next drill to improve. Okay, so I'm in my hip key. I'm gonna move my hands as low as I can to my hips and drop my head down. So now I'm in that meat hook position. My arms are straight. That's important. I'm gonna take off a sock because it always helps to keep track of feet. So my top foot is my bare foot. I'm gonna slice it back. I'm gonna roll both knees to the ceiling. I'm gonna push my heels down. Now my heels are gonna drive down, but I'm gonna keep pulling my hands to my hips and my hips to my hands and try and resist. So it's a negative out of meat hook. I'm in this position. I'm rolling my pelvis to the ceiling, but I'm keeping my torso curled up into my meat hook. I'm resisting here and slowly pulling into this position. My feet are providing force down, not just the weight of my legs, but I'm actively driving my heels down to use my ass. Want booty on that, okay? So legs pushing down, but at the same time, my arms and my abdominals and side body are pulling up. So I have this teasing a part of the body. Yeah, it's oppositional forces. So it's really nice. You get the pulling into meat hook energy. You get the driving down like a negative, but that rope between your legs is providing friction. How cool is that? So that's your training wheel. Meaning how much you squeeze your legs on that rope gives you X amount of help. If I squeeze more, I get way more help from the rope. If I squeeze less and separate my legs more on the initial top leg slices back, I get almost no help from the rope. So I could just take that top leg just a wee bit back. Now my legs are kind of pinching the rope, still drive my heels down, but I have the friction of the rope between my legs, and that slows me down a lot and helps me find that pull. I show again, just to be clear, So now I'll do this twice. I'll do it once with really opening the slice, turning my knees, driving the heels down, and the other one with barely opening. And then I'll show you how it goes wrong, just so you can be prepared when you're videoing yourself and go, oh, that's that thing she told me not to do. Yeah. So here I am now. My top foot is on has the sock. Yeah. So I have a nice heavy head, straight arms. I'm going to go wide with the legs. I really slice that leg back. Already I can feel less help from the rope. I have to hold myself here. And now I roll both knees toward the ceiling, drive my heels down, and try and go down slowly. Okay, that's one option. Now, if I want a lot of help from the rope, same idea. Now my bare leg is on top. I just barely slice back. I squeeze the rope as I press down. I can almost let go of my hands here. So I want to really keep my head down and focus on straight arms and work the form. I get a ton of assistance from that rope. Really important, just by squeezing, just the friction. Now here's what happens, and people again go, okay, I was doing your hip key descent and I don't get it. Like, I put my shirt on funny. Okay. 3 out of 4 days in coming to work this week, I've had pieces of clothing on inside out. It's happening. It's happening again. I've been getting up and getting dressed in the dark, which is really exciting. I should lay my clothes out maybe the night before, but that's too much planning. Okay, so this is what happens when people go, I don't feel the work, or I don't understand why this is a drill. They get into their hip key, they're good, and they move their feet apart, and then they lead with their hips down and just ride it. So I'm not pressing my body into that arch and really driving with my heels and using my butt. So I just check in, take a sip of tea, and see what thoughts are coming up. Any questions, thoughts, comments?
Cool. I never understood that exercise when you had us do it in conditioning, and now that I'm doing C-shaping roll downs, I did the dump the hips thing every time. And now that I understand C-shaping roll downs, it's basically a open C-shape kind of roll down.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but I want you then, if it didn't make sense when I explained it before.
Oh, no. It's not that you didn't explain it well, it's that my body didn't get it.
Well, there's that too, but also I'm going to take responsibility for some of that. As you teach something more, you learn different ways to speak it. So I'm sure I said the thing, but I didn't say the right thing for you. And I'm totally cool with that. I'm ready to say more right things if I can find them. So when you're pressing down, I'm glad your body understands that, because you're right, it is a C-shaping down. Absolutely. I want you now to really find the resistance from your arms. And think of it not just like this C-shaping thing, but think of I'm C-shaping down with my legs and I'm pulling myself up into meat hook to provide that resistance. And that's what's going to make this a stronger thing for you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when I'm working this, you can work it one at a time like I do, or I typically will do a hip key climb up and then a full descent down. And I alternate sides on the way down, but you can choose to do it however you like. So just checking in, any other questions before I move on? Okay. Tune in anytime. I can hear you even over there. I just like to look at faces. All right, I'll just leave this sock off. This is my left foot. This is my right foot. That might be helpful. For me, the feet and hands get really confusing when I'm watching a video. So another thing to work on, and Amy, you'll be familiar with this one, is just kind of your static strength in the leaned back position. Okay, remember how there's the scissor pelvis and chest to the ceiling moment? That's like a mini planche moment. Because that rope isn't holding you that well. You've got to hold with some front planche strength. So we have to develop that as well. So many people, they're just like Randy said, they're just staying upright. And I think, yeah, Mousy might have said something like this too, where it's just like this, I'm just kind of finagling it with my legs, but I'm hugging my rope with my entire being, you know, and we need to be free to move around that rope. So if I am in my hip key now, there, I can key over and throw the tail over my belly for a little extra support. This helps quite a bit. And then I can work with my hands low, my hands high, depending on what I want to work. I kind of like this halfway position and work on coming out into that planche and just holding there and feeling like, do I have that strength? What about here? It's easier with the hands low, but working on kind of this high position. And then can I even tip away for a moment? Can I just tip away and actually lift my butt out of the stirrup here on my left side? That little moment. And I'm trying to do that with at least one arm straight. Because of the way we're turning, typically one arm will bend. Don't worry about that. The problem is I don't want you bending with both, because that's what brings your chest up. You're committing to having your head, neck, and chest stay at the same level and just rotate. Cool. All right, makes sense. So I really, really, really love that drill just for building the moment of whoop with the legs. Because that's when, again, you pull your rope pants on and you need it, or your fabric pants, whatever you're using, or your multi-cord pants. Those are fun, like fringy pants, yeah? So see if you can see that moment, just to put that together, and then I'll move on. Here, as I go into my hip key, I'm gonna do a bent arm one. So this is more meat hooky for me. But here, I have to lift my hips in and then collapse into my key. Yeah, so that's a little bit of that away strength to kind of settle your key. Okay, so we've covered options for your hip key, all that are good and that might be fairly attractive. We've covered how to do the descent to build your strength, because going down is way easier than going up, right? And then you have your moderation of how much help you get from the rope based on how much you split the legs. That really makes a difference, okay? If you take those legs apart, you're getting almost nothing. And now we're going to talk about the climb. This is another way to condition it. I want you first to clear your mind of any ideas of what it should look like when you're training this. No, that's not true. I just don't want you to be attached to it being pretty at first. That's really what I'm trying to say. It's going to be ugly. It's going to feel gnarly, but this is a thing to just monitor your progress. It will get easier, and all of a sudden you'll be like, this is actually a cool way to gain height. But at first, it's just going to be letting you know, oh, my hip keys, they need some work. That's cool. So hip key climb, the pattern changes. Instead of going hip key, grab the rope, scissor all the way over into the hip key, that's not what happens. We go hip key, grab the rope, and then instead of a full rainbow, you do a half rainbow up to the ceiling, and then that leg, the leg that was underneath it, goes out to where the first leg was. So this one's replacing this one's going here. And then first leg drives straight down, second leg drives straight down, and they squeeze back like this. Booty. So that's a booty squeeze. And your body comes upright to the rope. So we're not actually keying over. So I would like to maybe change this. I think I just always learned everything hip key, and not thinking about the word key, of making this more of like a hip lock climb. We're locking in at the hips, but we're going up. We're not keying in. Yeah. So it starts with that initial mate hook to gather the rope, but you'll see the legs go in this other pattern that's, oops, coordination here. That second leg needs to follow in the exact same path as the first leg though. Okay, so I'll show that bit. A good warm up for me today, guys. So, and I'm up. And I'm up. really using this bum. I bring the pull to my opposite shoulder. One more here. I reach up high, and that's where I'm really using that meat hook strength. Now that I'm here, what a great opportunity to do that descent. Switch sides. When I do the descent, I do a long hang hip key because I don't want to gain height. And there it all is. Yeah? So, could you see how much I really straighten out my body and extend there? It's like I'm standing up. If you don't drive into the legs, that one looks pretty dumpy. It's big. You should be able to gain a lot of height. At first, you won't because your meat hook strength won't be strong enough to get your hips up high enough. That's okay. It will get better. It will get better. So I want to just check in any questions on that climb. Giving people moments.
So much clearer in my understanding of it. And I think I will be able to gain so much more height now, which is exciting.
Yay! I love that you're going back to the basics. That this is actually really common, Miles. I know so many people that are doing like crazy tricks, some things that are too scary for me. And then I'm like, what's up with your hip key? Like that looks kind of like crapola. And usually those people don't roll well. They're doing these big tricks, but they don't roll well because they haven't mastered this skill. So if rolling is a goal for you, oh, you got to get this down. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else? I have a little bit more to talk about with that leg for Randy because I love that question.
I actually have, talking about rolling, I've been doing a lot of hip key roll-ups and slow hip key roll-ups. And a thing that I've been finding when I've been doing slow hip key roll-ups is sometimes my rope placement from my hip key is in like such a place that it is like viscerally painful. Do you have like a hack on hip keying to set the rope in a comfy spot?
You're talking about kind of low belly here, this stuff, or up higher?
Up higher.
Up higher. It's a slow one. The up high tends to be now you're getting into your floating rib area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a really nice thing to just to mention. You need to be aiming for a more horizontal landing.
Okay.
Rib injuries are super common with working hip key roll-ups on that floating rib, and it doesn't feel like a rib injury. It just feels like, ugh, and it can be tender to touch, but it won't necessarily feel like other rib things where it feels like your back's kind of out and your chest hurts and other things that can happen there. That would be my first guess. The other thing is, if you're not landing vertically and that's not the source of the problem, is your skin needs to be conditioned to these. It's real. It's really real. Like when I take off my leotards, it's gross. I shake it and it's like a snowfall of disgusting dried skin because I have so much alligator skin on my belly now. It's really nasty and I love it. Like I get worried if I don't see the alligator shakeout. I can't say it's an attractive thing, but it works. And then there's also like engagement of your core, the drawing everything in. Doesn't mean tightening and bracing, but a sense of drawing in and up and working through that can really help with the squish factor. There's a million other things too. If you're collapsing in any way on the rope, that could cause that feeling. And then sometimes I hit like a very superficial nerve on one side. And it's like, hot poker feeling. I haven't had that in a couple of years, but I had that. I did have that. I haven't had it in a couple of years, but for a couple of years before that, I had that every time I went onto my right side. Who knows? Bodies. But quickly before I go, and if you have another question, Leah, did you have a question? You looked like you were leaning in. Just want to check. No? Okay. You're not eating your breakfast. Did you get up early?
Yep. Early.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Still not fully awake, but
That's okay. I hear you. You need some fried chicken. That wakes you up, apparently. I'm like really happy about it. Okay, that's my chicken wings at the straight leg. It's so amazing that we could have straight legs on our pikes. We could have straight legs on our straddles. What's different about hip key? You're putting a huge twist in your body. So you're hitting an entirely different myofascial line. And if there's tension in that line, you're going to have that bent knee. And you have to work on knee straighteners in that position. It's very positional. And so, for example, you don't want to do this on that mat. I'm going to turn. I hate lying on squishy mats and doing forward. Pet peeve. But if I am actually smart enough to do my full warm up, this is a huge part of it, is I straighten a leg, I tighten my knee, and I move slowly at first, and I go into this super, super far stretch. Yeah, but I'm not pulling it or anything. This is a movement. This is a dynamic warm up. And I'm stretching here, my IT band, where it attaches up, where it meets into my glutes, my glute med and my glute max up here. And I'm stretching into my lower back. And that's important. As I get warmer, I go faster, being really careful not to hit this position. I need to keep that line. So I need to feel my quads on the whole time. And if I'm thinking I'm going to be showing somebody some rope and I really want to have my form on top, I won't skip that. I'll do that for 5 minutes just to loosen that area up. That's not saying I don't do other stretches for that area. You could totally do, you know, whatever your favorite outer butt stretch is, because that's where the IT band goes in, and low back stretches. Yeah, because that's what's going to be causing that tension. So then you hit all the tension on the back line while you put it on stretch, and your knee softens because it can't go into that tension. So you have resistance on the back causing this problem to the front. So even if you have beautifully straight legs on your straddle ups, think about your straddle ups. What does that do? It's way more in slack. Your IT bands are in slack there. Like, they're not causing any restriction. The restriction, if you have a hard time just straightening your legs, say you didn't have a hard time crossing your legs with straight legs for hip key, but you had a hard time with bent knees and straddle, and you're perfectly strong in your abs, so we got to take that out, it would be an inner thigh problem as far as tension. But typically with hip key, and typically because we are a society that sits, it's a tension in the IT band, tension in the lower back. Another thing to play with. I mean, this is a place that I get really tight. Why? Because I do so many straddles, like straddles and meat hooks and all that stuff. You're working this line in a shortened position all the time. So you have to learn how to work it in a lengthened position as well. But I'll just get over into this thing, and I'll just practice kind of rolling my pelvis forward and back without letting my foot lift. I don't want to do this. So I'm trying to really just drag it and just kind of opening up my low back and opening up that side butt. You can do it a little bit. It's kind of hard on the knee. So if you're more tight in the back than you are in the side butt, the knee on the ground works great. I am personally more tight through my hip. So this feels nice to kind of go backward and try and keep my foot down. So that stretches the back of my hip more. Yeah. So, and then of course, you know, all your knee straightener drills, you know, I love doing these guys. All that stuff can be done in that position. You can cross over. That's different. That is way harder all of a sudden just to straighten my knee with a twist. If I just twist my body. Holy moly. Oh, I got an adductor cramp. Whew. That was exciting. I really meant to get here early and warm up. And I was like 9:11 rolling in, like, oh my God. That's the way this morning, because I was looking for puppies online. Yeah, I know. I want a dog. I want a dog bed. So, but that is like a huge time suck for me right now. I just get lost in looking at cute dogs. So anyway, enough about that. Any questions? And did I miss any questions that you had in the beginning? We talked about the lifting up into meat hook and the straight legs. We're good. We're good. All right. Thanks so much for coming this morning. It was really fun to see you all, and have fun trying. And if like you didn't work, I saw Amy. I didn't watch, but because I have a private lesson with her next, so I want to take a peek then. But if you take video of yourself and want any troubleshooting, please just send it to me. That's part of why we do this. So you get the information, but I don't want you to feel lost ever afterwards. So if it's not making sense, you're like, okay, it all made sense when you talked about it. Now when I'm doing it, it's falling apart. You send me a video. If you just tell me about it, you better be really good with your description. Otherwise, you're just going to hear me asking for a video. Right? Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
Bye for
you.
now.